the small boats. What does Nigel Farage do? He votes against it. We've got a returns deal with France. What does Nigel Farage do? He says he'd rip it up.
Well, he would do
ID cards to stop people working illegally in our economy. He says he would reverse it. He doesn't want to fix the problem, because if the problem is fixed, his reason to exist goes away. So that's why I call it the politics of grievance.
No mention of ID cards in your speech then. Are you going cool on the idea? Of course, I was there on Friday when you mentioned them.
No, I mentioned them, and they were a major part of my speech on Friday. Today I was making, if you like, a bigger... at the beginning of the summer, I said I don't want just a lot of policy in this speech. I want to elevate it to a point where we're having a proper discussion about who are we as a country, what do we believe in, and how do we make sure that we go forward as one country together, united, and not slip into the division, which I fear will be the choice of the next election.
You mentioned a fork in the road. One fork, I suppose, is the Tories and Labour, and the other fork is Reform. So would you be willing to sleep under a Tory government, but not a Reform government, if you see? I
think a lot of people would say, and I would say, I vote Labour. I want a Labour government. Obviously, I'm a Labour Prime Minister. But if there's a Conservative government, there isn't the level of fear that there is if we go for a more right-wing proposition. And in recent weeks and months, there's been a huge amount of incoming to me by people across the country who are fearful that they don't belong in this country. They thought they were part of the Britain we were proud of, and now they feel they don't belong. That is not a good thing for our tolerant, diverse country.
You mentioned small boats. I think that's when you think that's how you'll be judged. You want to stop those boats. Siobhan Mahmood's making new steps there. You know, at the weekend, a big boat came in, 125 arrived, maybe 5 have gone back under the one in and one out deal. When will that start getting going? Will you stop the boats by the election?
Well, the returns agreement with France is important because we need to establish that if you come by boat, you will be returned to France. I accept the numbers are low. We had to prove the concept and prove that it could work. We've now done that, but now we need to ramp that up. I would gently point out to Nigel Farage and others that before we left the EU, we had a returns agreement with every country in the EU, and he told the country, make no difference if we left. Well, he was wrong about that. These are Farage boats, in many senses, that are coming across the channel.
And legal net migration, that will come down to under your government?
Yes, if you look at, well, we got the Boris wave, didn't we? Yeah. Immigration went up fourfold under the Conservatives in 5 short years. It's unbelievable. And we are bringing it down. You've seen those numbers coming down. Of course, it's right to say that many people come here to contribute to our society, but the numbers need to come down, and we're bringing them down.
Just a very final question. You aren't doing very well in the polls personally. You've seen those polls. Would you stand aside in the national interest if the next person who came in could beat Nigel Farage and lift the poll rating for Labour?
We had an election last July.
Yeah.
I led my party to a landslide victory. And I never pretended and never said that we could undo 14 years of failure in 12 short months. It was always going to take longer than that. I will lead my party into the next election, and I will be judged at that election on whether living standards have gone up, people feel better off, whether public services are better, particularly the NHS, and whether people feel more safe and secure in their neighbourhood and in their country. Rightly judged against those tests when it gets to the next election.
So, Keir Starmer, thank you for joining us on GB News, and I'll give you a GB News flag later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, earlier on GB News, Reform's Zia Youssef slammed the Prime Minister for his comments.
I've seen so many social media posts, TikTok and X, calling for the explicit assassination of my friend and colleague Nigel. So the Prime Minister doing this with his cabinet is unprecedented in this country. And I want to be clear too, if something were to happen to Nigel, heaven forbid, God forbid, we will hold the Prime Minister responsible.
Well, joining us now from the Labour Party conference in Liverpool is GB News presenter Andrew Pearce. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is real fighting talk now from Zia Youssef, saying that he would hold the Prime Minister responsible if Nigel Farage was attacked, following Labour Party conference comments about the Reform UK leader. That's quite an exceptional and really quite extraordinary move from Zia Youssef.
Yeah, Well, that's right, and the reforms people are saying very strongly that the Prime Minister's speech was so provocative, and it was personally provocative about Nigel Farage, who, wherever you see him now, he's surrounded by protection officers. We've got Joe White here, who is the Labour MP for Bassetlaw and the convener of the Red Wall group of MPs. Joe, astonishing claim by the Prime Minister on GB News, talking to our political editor Chris Hope. These boats, the small boats, are Farage's boats because the Dublin Agreement, which we had before, expired with Brexit. But I checked the figures, only 7% of illegal migrants were ever sent back under the Dublin Agreement. It was rubbish, it just didn't work. So is it fair for the Prime Minister to say these are Farage's boats?
I think what the Prime Minister was arguing, that it was a returns route that we were able to use. Obviously, too few numbers were returned using that mechanism, and it's why the government have negotiated with France for the one in, one out agreement, and it
which
needs
isn't
to
very
be
effective.
Well, it's a start, it's a pilot, but it needs to be done with other countries as well. It needs to be done with Belgium, it needs to be done with Germany, and it needs to be done with countries like Spain so that we can have an effective agreement. But I fundamentally believe that it was the previous government's legislation that means that people can only claim asylum when they arrive on British soils. This is what's driven the boats. And that's what created the crisis.
You made a speech earlier in the week, Joe White, where you said if the Prime Minister can't communicate successfully what he's trying to do to the Red Wall, where you're an MP,
yes,
he really shouldn't be Prime Minister. Did he do any better in his speech yesterday?
What he was trying to do was to bring the country together and to show what our passion and our desire is for renewal. And what I heard was that he wants to ensure that money is no longer spent just in London and the South East, that he wants to see economic development and growth in the North. And that's my passion, that's my desire, that the Prime Minister actually comes out of Westminster and comes to places like mine, hears what people are saying, what their values are, and reflects and responds to that. And I thought that his speech yesterday was the start of that mission.
Do you know how many times he mentioned the cost of living in that speech? Once. That's not enough. The biggest issue facing your voters, people watching this programme, listening to this programme, is the cost of living. Food inflation, 5.1%. The Food and Drink Federation, got a stand just over there, told me yesterday it will be 6% by Christmas. He only talked about the cost of living crisis once, because this was all about party management and trying to see off a Labour challenge, not about what was good for the country.
I certainly believe the cost of living is a big priority. I survey my constituents all the time. This summer I ran my summer survey. The biggest issue was stopping the boats, and then below that was cost of living, sorting out our NHS and rebuilding the economy and our defence. So I recognise it's something that we have to rebuild the economy to ensure that people have more money in their pockets and make better choices in their lives. But for me, my job is to ensure that this government is focusing on tackling those boats. That's what my constituents have told me.
Last question, with precious of time, Joe, do you think the Prime Minister has now, is he communicating successfully to your constituents, and will he still be Prime Minister when we go into the next election in, 3.5, 4 years' time?
I can't make that judgment, but his biggest challenge is to rebuild his connection with people like my people.
Do you think he should be?
Yes.
You think he should be?
He has to.
Take you into the next general election as leader?
At this point in time, if he rebuilds his connectivity with my constituents, coming to doing town hall meetings, I think he can do that.
It's not a great endorsement of him.
I'm proud of what he did yesterday, and he just needs to do more, in my view. And he will do it. He understands what he needs to do. And the fact that he was able to show empathy and commitment in the speech that he made yesterday, I think he's making that great step forward.
All right, that's Jo White. She's the convener of the Red Wall group of Labour MPs. She's a Labour MP for Bassetlaw, which will be a key target area for reform, saying that she thinks he'll still be there come the next general election. We'll cross back now to you in the studio, Miriam, and who are you with?
Charlie.
Oh, yes.
You obviously can't see us.
Back to you in the studio.
Thank
Miriam
you,
and Charlie.
Andrew. And we'll be crossing back to you later on.
I'm being Andrew for the day, isn't it, who I am?
No, absolutely. He's forgotten all about us. But isn't that extraordinary, desperate attempt from Labour to pin the small boats crisis on Nigel Farage and Brexit? I don't think people are going to be fooled by this allegation.
I mean, look, the returns issue that this country has is with countries like India, Pakistan and Nigeria. Is it really with France? Obviously, there are concerns there about our relationship with Paris and how to deal with these small boat crossings. But that problem we've had with deportations, that precedes Brexit by a long way.
Exactly, and in the EU, we were still part of the ECHR, which did prevent us from returning people.
Precisely.
Doesn't matter whether we're in the EU or not, but also extraordinary comments about Farage being far right and being the enemy. I mean, quite strong language given the political climate.
Yeah, extremely so. And we're hearing Zia Youssef this morning saying that he's going to hold Starmer responsible if Nigel Farage is attacked. Do you think that's going too far, perhaps? Obviously, Reform talks a lot about free speech. Are they now saying that the Prime Minister is inciting violence against Nigel Farage? What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. But before we get back to discussing all things Labour, we're going to cross live to Birmingham as bin men are protesting outside the Home Secretary's office ahead of her speech this morning.
Protesters gathering outside Shabana Mahmood's office here in the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham. At the start of September, bin workers voted overwhelmingly to continue their industrial action until March 2026. Birmingham City Council said it had been reasonable and flexible but needed to transform their waste and recycling service. We'll be speaking to them after the break, but first, it's a bit damp and drizzly here in Birmingham. But if you're in search of some of that holiday sun, here's the weather forecast for your top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
We've seen some pretty heavy rain around the Mediterranean this week. It's going to stay pretty wet and quite windy across Greece. Meanwhile, the rain clearing away from Italy and the Balkans. A few showers coming into the Canary Islands, the odd one close to Barcelona, but the Balearics turning drier after some thunderstorms earlier, along with the Balkans and Italy as the rain clears away here during Thursday. But setting up across Greece, some heavy downpours and gusty winds through Thursday and Friday. Looking drier, though, in Santorini for the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You're ready, you can just see it buzzing. The New Zealand-France game is going on, the bronze final in the stadium at the moment, and there's about 45,000 people already in the stadium watching it. So the energy in this place is unbelievable, and the excitement, because this game is a real game of jeopardy, the final between England and Canada.
And you've got caps galore, you've been involved in coaching men and women's rugby. So, and you won in 1994. What's it like to be a winner?
Well, this is the shirt that I wore back in the day in 1994. This is my World Cup winning shirt, so I'm hoping it's going to bring a bit of luck to the girls. But it was an incredibly special time. But for me to see how the game has changed, we had 6,000 people watch us win that World Cup, and now women's sport in this country, it's our Lionesses, the Red Roses, the Cricket World Cup is the tickets are on sale for that next year, and people are choosing to watch women's sport and really, really enjoying the event. So it's fantastic, and the change over that 30-year span is quite remarkable.
What do you think has made the difference? Why is it becoming, as you say, football is the same. Why is it becoming more acceptable now? And not just for women and girls to follow the sport as well, but I go to West Ham regularly for my sins, but so many men are now starting to pay a little bit of attention without being too sneery.
Well, absolutely, but I think the biggest thing is the quality of the product. Because the girls have been given contracts and are now able to train, not have to go to work and then leave a full day's work and come training and then do almost a second job in order to deliver on the skills. Both the Lionesses, the Roses, everybody now at the top end of the game is being financially rewarded for it, so they can actually concentrate on their sport.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:51 and this is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Well, it's been 6 months of bin strikes in Birmingham as rubbish continues to pile up on the city streets. Now binmen are protesting outside the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood's office, ahead of her speech at conference later this morning.
Well, let's cross live to Birmingham now and speak to GB News national reporter Jack Carson. Jack, a lot of focus on Liverpool, but the bin strike hasn't gone away, has it?
Well, certainly, and these protests really now starting to get underway with banners and people here standing outside Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary's office. Luke Dalton, who's a striking bin worker, joins us now. Luke, just quickly, we're more than 6 months on now since this all-out strike started. As a striking bin worker, where are we in all of this?
We're no further forward. We're waiting to get round the table with the council. It's recently been said that there's an offer on the table. There's no offer there for us. This is the reason that we're standing out here. We had the demonstration recently. There's rubbish still on the streets and the residents need their service. We're waiting to get round the table still. Obviously, we've just reballoted and this can go on till March, potentially. So we're no closer than when we've last spoken, to be honest.
Now Birmingham City Council, they'd say they've been reasonable and flexible, but they need to transform the waste and recycling services in the city. Now, it started as the removal of the waste and recycling collection officer role, but there's a current job evaluation scheme with the drivers. Now, you're one of them, so you would be affected by that. What would be the impact?
Again, it's another £8,000 cut. What they've done is they've reduced the salaries. They've dropped the grade of the role, so it's gone from a grade 4 to a grade 3, which is an impact of up to £8,000. Yeah, people aren't going to be able to pay their mortgages. People aren't going to be able to pay their rent, because how can families sustain that kind of loss?
Yeah, now obviously across the city, at the peak of this, there was real piles of rubbish. The council have been using agency workers. There are still these hot spots. Do you understand people's frustration at the rubbish that they're seeing on the streets as well?
I really empathise with the rubbish on the streets. The council are implying that they're providing a service, and we all know they're only providing half a service. The residents of Birmingham need to get their collections back, and we want to get back to work. It's something we're proud to do, but we need to get round the table to negotiate and get this settled once and for all. So I would urge anybody within the council to stop hiding and actually get round the table with us, because we've had since John Cotton publicly come out and said that there was no more negotiations. Nothing else has been done. We're just coming to the end of our consultation.
Right. OK, Luke Dalton, thank you so much for joining us. Luke Dalton, striking bin worker. These protests now continuing. We'll bring you more coverage throughout the morning.
Well, thank you, Jack. And still ahead, we'll be crossing back to the Labour conference.
Because this is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit of a north-south split again today, with a lot of cloud across the north, some rain around as well. Much of the south dry and fine, but there is again some fog around first thing. Quite a wet start in western Scotland. The rain, once it's set in here, is likely to last for quite some time. Further south, well, a little bit of showery rain over northwest England perhaps, but most of England and Wales dry. Yes, there's a few fog patches around, but they should be clearing, and then we'll see some dry and bright conditions. Hazy sunshine lifting the temperatures up to 20 Celsius. Rain easing a bit from Northern Ireland, but as I said, persisting in western Scotland. Not going to rain across all of Scotland, however. I suspect the Moray Firth should have a decent amount of shelter, and even some bright spells coming through here. The rain will ease a little in western Scotland, but there's more rain to come through Wednesday night and Thursday, so we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place, the potential for some flooding and some travel disruption. Does turn a bit drier through the evening across Northern Ireland, still 1 or two showers maybe in Cumbria, but most of England and Wales having a fine evening. The wind's pretty light here as well, which may allow some mistiness to reform through Wednesday evening, but the wet weather will continue to push back into Northern Ireland, Western Scotland. As I said, we've got that warning in place. A bit more rain edging a little further south at times into North Wales and northwest England too. Further south it stays dry with some clearer skies. In the rural spots we could dip down to single figures, but a very mild night across Scotland and Northern Ireland with that cloud and the strengthening wind, which will again be a feature of Thursday's weather. Again, the rain may ease for a time in Western Scotland, but look at this, another pulse of rain tomorrow morning for Northern Ireland. That spreads back into Western Scotland. This could really be quite heavy and last through Thursday night into Friday morning, so again the potential for flooding and disruption, whereas again a good part of England and Wales looking dry and bright tomorrow with temperatures in the high teens.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, on the M8 westbound between junctions 14 to 15, lane 4 is closed due to a broken down vehicle, urging cautious driving. Nearby, the A40 has an incident, prompting diversions. In Surrey, heavy delays persist on the M25 clockwise, with all lanes closed at junction 14 due to a collision. In East Sussex, the A27 eastbound has all lanes closed following a collision between the A26 and the A2270. On the trains, northern disruption occurs between Manchester Victoria and Newton Le Willows. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 1st of October. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer has dubbed the Channel crossing crisis as Farage boats, as the Prime Minister tells GB News that Britain faces an era-defining choice, as he claims Reform UK would tear this country apart.
There is a political fight that has to be had, and it's about the future of our country, because at the next election, the fight will be different to the fight at every other election. It won't be Labour versus the Conservatives, it'll be Labour versus Reform.
the party conference, Labour politicians weren't shy in their attacks on Nigel Farage's party.
He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain.
Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman.
The plastic patriots in reform.
The single greatest threat is the agenda of Nigel Farage.
We must call his scheme racist.
Well, Reform's Zia Youssef has hit back, telling GB News that if anything happens to Nigel Farage, he would hold the Prime Minister responsible.
I've seen so many social media posts, TikTok and X, calling for the explicit assassination of my friend and colleague Nigel. So the Prime Minister doing this with his cabinet is unprecedented in this country. And I want to be clear too, if something were to happen to Nigel, heaven forbid, God forbid, we will hold the Prime Minister responsible.
Well, we'll be live from the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, where our very own Andrew Pearce will be interrogating politicians.
And the big moment this morning, Ed Miliband, the Climate Change Secretary, making a keynote speech this morning on the very day our energy bills are going up yet again.
Well, GB News contributor and everyone's favourite lefty, Matthew Torbett, is among 4 of those banned from the Labour Party conference in what has been called a Trumpian crackdown. He joins us later in the show from outside the venue.
And we'll be crossing to a pub in Merseyside that has been renamed the George Orwell and whose walls are covered in a projected Big Brother is watching you slogan in protest against Labour's digital ID cards plans.
Charlie, I don't know if you saw the cartoon in the Telegraph yesterday. It was of 2 delegates leaving the Labour conference and saying, next year I'm going to Reform conference because they'll talk about Nigel Farage less.
Well, yeah, I mean, you almost called it the Reform conference there, the Labour one. They are. I mean,
Just slipped out.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong, I think. I mean, the term I'm getting is rattled, obsessed.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's clear that they now recognise Reform as the main challenge, right? Yep. Not the Conservative Party. Barely a mention. I haven't actually heard any in the speeches of the Conservatives. But, you know, this is what we're hearing from Zia Youssef now and also from Nigel Farage himself. Have those attacks gone too far in this incitement to violence criticism they're going for? Some people saying that Reform UK acting a bit like snowflakes there, say the criticism is putting their lives at risk. So what do you make of that?
I think it's a difficult line because I think it's fair enough to see your political opponents as enemies, political enemies. That is, at the end, you're fighting for a different vision. That's fair enough. But I think it is very difficult when the language crosses over into something that is dehumanising. And as unpopular as it made me, this is the point I was trying to make about Angela Rayner. We shouldn't dehumanise our political opponents because it can lead to this kind of coarse language and potentially violence. But it's a very difficult line. We do need free speech, but we also need decency.
Talking about her, talking about scum, all that business.
Yeah.
No, I completely understand. And on that point, I mean, what we're seeing now from Labour, describing Reform politicians as racist, saying their policies are racist. You know, Reform are saying that's dangerous. I actually think that term has now lost its serious meaning. I think it's quite the opposite of being dangerous. It comes across, actually, I think some people will say, pathetic. Because they're trying to apply that word to everything that they're saying. I think we've moved past the phase where you can just chuck out the word racist and it has an effect. The magic word has lost its power.
And
actually, people don't find that moving anymore.
And there was a time, 3 or 4 years ago, when actually it was silencing people, being called racist or transphobic or all these other things. But I think people are seeing through that now. But Labour haven't understood yet why it is that people are worried about immigration. They want to solve the problem to win votes, but they don't really understand why people are so up in arms.
Yeah, and of course, this is a Prime Minister who took the knee for Black Lives Matter. Perhaps he still thinks that the term racist has the power it has and that you can just chuck it at anyone and they'll be kept out of the political conversation. What do you think, though? You've heard enough from me and Miriam already. gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top story. Sir Keir Starmer says he does not believe Nigel Farage or Reform voters are racist and also refused to label Donald Trump's claim that London wants Sharia law as such. The Prime Minister told reporters the President's claim made while criticising the capital's mayor, Sadiq Khan, during a UN summit last week was nonsense. He said the mayor who branded Mr Trump racist, sexist and misogynistic was doing a very good job, but also pointed to his very good relationship with the US president. Sir Keir also insisted he does not think Mr Farage or Reform supporters are racist after targeting the party in his Labour conference speech after claiming its leader hates Britain. Earlier in the week, Sir Keir called Reform's freshly announced immigration policies racist and immoral. Work and Pension Secretary Pat McFadden spoke to GB News.
No one wants to incite that against anyone. I'm sure if you look through his own statements over the years, you'd find some pretty big inflammatory ones too. Being ahead in the polls brings with it scrutiny. It brings with it scrutiny of your policy. I know this myself. I was a campaign coordinator for Labour before the general election last year, and they'll have to expect scrutiny, and they'll have to expect strong examination. And when the policy is wrong, as I believe the policy they announced last week was, then we will take it to task and we will expose it. And it's our job to do that with our political opponents.
Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to look at how UK courts apply human rights law on asylum cases as he dubbed these small boats he's trying to stop crossing the English Channel Farage boats. The Prime Minister gave the clearest sign yet the government is planning a major overhaul on the use of the ECHR in immigration cases, but insisted he would not pull the UK out of the existing treaties. His comments came after the Home Secretary set out plans to tighten rules for migrants seeking indefinite leave to remain during the Labour Party conference, a status allowing legal migrants to settle in the UK without visa renewal. Sir Keir said today we need to look again at the interpretation of a wide range of international laws by UK courts. The Prime Minister also said this morning that Reform's policy of scrapping indefinite leave to remain has sent a shudder through the spines of many people across the country as he renewed his criticism of Reform's latest migration policy. The US government has shut down for the first time in almost 7 years after last-ditch Senate votes on funding plans fell short. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers deemed not essential for protecting people or property, such as law enforcement personnel, could be furloughed or laid off after the shutdown began at midnight US time. Critical services, including Social Security payments and the Postal Service, will keep operating but may suffer from worker shortages, while national parks and museums could be among the sectors that close completely. It comes after rival Democrat and Republicans refused to budge in their standoff over healthcare spending. Back home, all GP surgeries in England are required to offer online appointment bookings from today. Practices must keep their websites and app services available from at least 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday for non-urgent appointments, medication queries and admin requests. Many surgeries are already offering online bookings and consultations, but services are typically less effective in working-class areas. The Department of Health and Social Care says there is a lack of consistency as some surgeries that offer online services are choosing to switch the function off during busier periods. More than 7 million households still on a standard energy tariff have been urged to send in meter readings to avoid paying higher prices from today. The energy price cap rises by 2% from today for a typical household in England, Scotland and Wales, just as cooler temperatures see many switching on their central heating. This means that the energy bill for the average household paying by direct debit for gas and electricity will rise from currently £1,720 to £1,755 per year. The step-change debt charity said the £35 per year increase seems like a small amount, but warned that the new figures showed a 32% rise in average energy arrears among its clients seeking debt advice over the last 2 years. The increase in energy costs come despite wholesale prices falling by 2% over the 3 months prior to Ofgem's latest price cap decision. The Unite Action Network are striking outside the Home Secretary's office as rubbish continues to pile up on the streets of Birmingham. The union says streets all over Shabana Mahmood's Ladywood constituency are still piled high with months of uncollected rubbish. It argues that since the council walked away from negotiations over 2 months ago, Birmingham's 8 Labour MPs have done nothing to help end the strike. The union said while Labour holds its conference in Liverpool, we're holding a protest outside Shabana Mahmood's office with a simple message: Labour need to resolve the strike and clean up Birmingham. And the Princess Royal made a surprise visit to Ukraine today to highlight the traumatic experiences of children living on the front line of the conflict. Princess Anne left a toy bear at a memorial for children killed since Russia's full-scale invasion and spoke to young people alleged to have been taken from their homes by Russian forces. She also discussed the UK's support for Ukraine and its ongoing resistance with President Volodymyr Zelensky. Those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer has blamed the Channel migrant crisis on Brexit and dubbed the migrant dinghies Farage boats. Now, this is the latest swipe the Prime Minister has made at the Reform UK leader after criticising him repeatedly in his conference speech.
Well, GB News political editor Christopher Hope sat down with Sir Keir Starmer earlier.
Well, the returns agreement with France is important because we need to establish that if you come by boat, you will be returned to France. I accept the numbers are low. We had to prove the concept and prove that it could work. We've now done that, but now we need to ramp that up. I would gently point out to Nigel Farage and others that before we left the EU, we had a returns agreement with every country in the EU, and he told the country make no difference if we left. Well, he was wrong about that. These are Farage boats in many senses that are coming across the Channel.
And legal net migration, that will come down to under your government.
Yes, if you look at, well, we got the Boris wave, didn't we? Yeah. Immigration went up fourfold under the Conservatives in 5 short years. It's unbelievable. And we are bringing it down. You've seen those numbers coming down. Of course, it's right to say that many people come here to contribute to our society, but the numbers need to come down, and we're bringing them down.
But Reform UK's Zia Youssef has hit back, suggesting that the Prime Minister's words were irresponsible, as he thinks they incite violence.
I've seen so many social media posts, TikTok and X, calling for the explicit assassination of my friend and colleague Nigel. So the Prime Minister doing this with his cabinet is unprecedented in this country. And I want to be clear too, if something were to happen to Nigel, heaven forbid, God forbid, we will hold the Prime Minister responsible.
Well, joining us now from the Labour Party conference in Liverpool is GB News presenter Andrew Pearce. Andrew, this was an opportunity for the Prime Minister to sell his vision for Britain, put out some new policies, but a lot of people are leaving this conference thinking that it was all about Nigel Farage.
It's extraordinary. Every day it's been dominated by Reform, Nigel Farage. The Prime Minister's speech was dominated by Nigel Farage. They only mentioned the cost of living once, which I think was an extraordinary mistake. The speech, in my view, Tom and Miriam, was all about shoring up his position with MPs and party members and party activists, because he is in dire trouble, political trouble. And I think that trouble will continue all the way until the local elections next May. He was speaking to the conference hall. I don't think he was speaking to the country at all, and I think it was a missed opportunity. And I also think strategically it was a mistake to get into that fight with Nigel Farage on such a personal level. How dare he say Nigel Farage isn't a patriot? On what basis does he make that charge, an allegation? And also, talking to people here, they are puzzled that he is now trying to argue that the small boats are Nigel Farage's boats. No, they're Keir Starmer's, because the number crossing the Channel has dramatically increased since the general election, and we saw only at the weekend a record number crossing in one single boat, 125. So I don't think that charge is going to stick. We know what he's getting at. The Dublin Agreement used to be in place when we were in the EU. It got rid of very few migrants. Only 7% were ever sent back. So I think he's on to a hiding to nothing on this argument.
Well, Andrew Pearce, thank you very much. Charlie and I are delighted to speak to you.
Yeah.
This is so memorable, Charlie.
Tom's in Liverpool, Charlie's in London. These things happen.
See you tomorrow, Andrew.
See you, Andrew. We're joined by the political presentation coach, Graham Davis, to discuss just how well the Prime Minister did. Welcome, Graham. Thank you for joining us this morning. That speech, then, we've just heard, obviously, Andrew's criticism of it. What was your take on sort of the eloquence and how he delivered it?
Well, I have to say that he was probably at least 10% less narcoleptic than he normally is. You see, watching a Keir keynote is like watching a flatlining oscilloscope that's attached to a patient who's already died on the operating theatre table normally. But this time, there was quite a lot of light and shade. There were some quiet, intimate moments. There were strong passages of quite vigorous intensity, and there were even some bits where he channeled his inner shouty Arsenal fan. And indeed, he clearly rehearsed comprehensively and in a professional way, so that the few moments of genuinely effective humour came across as unrehearsed and really rather amusing. It wasn't his delivery that let him down, it was his content.
Well, that's really interesting because he is not an orator, and I think he would be the first to admit that. But it did seem to have quite a warm reception in the hall. It didn't seem to be feigned applause, but actual genuine appreciation that he was putting passion into the speech. He was speaking about some personal matters. His father, again, he made a little bit of a joke about that. One of his best performances, then?
Well, certainly it was one of his top 2 performances as Prime Minister at a Labour Party conference. This was an audience that was like a wedding audience. It was desperate for the best man to be amusing, and they were going to be entertained and enlivened by him no matter what he said. So his performance and the way it went down in the hall, excellent. I wouldn't say that it was so effective in the country.
Graham, as a presentation coach, we've got some clips to take you through now. The first one, the Britain for All clip. Let's have a listen and see what you think about it.
It is a great country. It will always be a great country. A decent, pragmatic, tolerant, reasonable country that throughout history has stood its ground, stuck by its values and built its future without fuss. That's the Britain I'm fighting for conference, a nation of resolve, a land of respect, a Britain built for all.
Well, his content, epitomised by that clip, was somewhat the bland leading the blind. Britain built for all. It could be said by any leader at any time, at any conference. And frankly, it couldn't mask the fact that the overall content was such a policy-free zone. It was almost a policy vacuum. And his list of achievements, which I think we'll go on to in a later clip, was frankly razor-thin and didn't deserve the applause that it got.
OK, well, let's have a listen to the next one then. I think this is the Broken Britain clip, if we've got it there.
Is that Broken Britain conference? Is that Broken Britain conference? Britain is back. The stability has returned. Is that Broken Britain conference? Is that Broken Britain conference? Is that Broken Britain? Is that Broken Britain? Is that Broken Britain conference?
It wasn't exactly an American preacher's call and response, because when you're asking rhetorically a question of a live audience, you've got to be certain what the response is. The audience didn't know what to say. Is that Broken Britain? They didn't know whether to shout yes or no. So they were sort of sitting there in a slightly embarrassed limbo, sort of not knowing when to applaud. That sort of call and response has to be calculated very carefully, and it wasn't done well enough.
Graham, we've also got this another section, another perhaps rhetorical device that Starmer is using of him speaking over applause. We can show you that now as well.
Conference. Thank you, conference. Thank you. Conference, I will never give up.
He was using a device that was originally used, or that I originally saw used by Tony Benn, where instead of saying something, waiting and listening to the applause, saying something, then waiting and listening to the applause, he would in fact keep talking over the applause. And this has the effect of constantly but mildly tasering the audience so that they respond even louder, and thus gives the superficial illusion that his words are so brilliant that he has to fight through the applause and the cheering in order to get them out of his mouth. He was almost waiting for his golden buzzer moment, which of course never really came.
But he did try telling a joke, and he did get a couple of laughs. Let's have a listen to this one.
When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do. They want to turn this country, this proud, self-reliant country, into a competition of victims, saying to you, to working people, don't trust in each other. You can't fix this.
So, Graham, obviously that was him talking about the Reform UK party. A big part of the conference has been focused on reform. What do you make of that element in Starmer's speeches?
He was trying to create his own malevolent but ridiculous Ryder Cup moment. He was aware that his own team has been performing very badly for the last 15 months, so he decided to attack and insult the other team, especially the other team's captain, without apparently realising, just like the Yobs and Bethpage golf course, that it actually galvanises the other team and forces supporters towards them. He didn't just give Reform oxygen, he gave them plutonium and unwittingly turned Nigel Farage into the Rory McIlroy of British politics.
Well, now we are coming to the joke. I was got ahead of myself there. So let's take a listen to how he managed to get the audience to laugh.
Now, the Tories, do you remember them, conference? I don't know if they believed in grievance politics. Maybe they do now, when you see them turning away from the rule of law.
Could we see Sir Keir Starmer live at the Apollo anytime soon, do you reckon, Graham?
Probably. You see, his problem is this. Even though he occasionally can deliver a joke that's reasonably well crafted with reasonable efficiency, he's never going to be box office. He was trying to make himself box office by really focusing on his big, bad, behorned bogeyman, Nigel Farage, and without that, people just wouldn't be excited at all.
Of course, Graham, we can criticise what he said, but he didn't write that speech. A whole team of speechwriters probably will have written that speech. Of course, he will have had oversight into it.
Well, you say that. I mean, at Chequers, apparently, the Sun is reporting that he turned up to prepare for the speech in the summer with reams and reams of notes, and he was
he wrote the whole thing himself?
Didn't write the whole thing himself. But I think he's getting more and more involved in this process.
But doesn't it tell you, though, that they haven't got a top-notch speechwriter on their team, because it was full of cliché. If you compare it to some of the great conference speeches of the past, or even the Boris Johnson speech of 2022, which was policy light but absolutely hilarious, there's nobody kind of inputting those kind of key moments.
That Johnson speech that you described from 2022 was probably the best after-dinner speech that I heard at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely.
But you're right, this was a cliché-infested zone. He actually used this phrase, he actually said, oh, no one's ever said, we're all in this together. Well, I think, actually, you'll find that George Osborne said that in a conference speech 10 years ago. The best political speeches come from politicians who are, in fact, their own chief speechwriter. Barack Obama, David Cameron, yes, they use speechwriting teams, but they conducted those speechwriting teams, mainly coming up with the genesis of concepts and ideas themselves, which the writers sharpened. I'm afraid the Starmer technique is for a committee to come up with stuff that he just reads out.
Graham Davis, presentation coach, thank you so much for your time this morning. We'll see if perhaps that job interview for the Starmer team comes through. I'm sure you'll be there soon enough.
Absolutely. Well, moving on now. Bin men in Birmingham are protesting outside Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's office ahead of her conference speech this morning.
We'll go straight to Jack Carson in Birmingham, who is reporting there on the ground. Jack, what's going on this morning then with this protest?
Well, hundreds have turned out. Just step out the way quickly. You've got loads of banners. One of them saying, stop the rubbish, restart the talks, back your bin workers, resolve the dispute. I'm delighted to be joined by Onai Kassab, who's the National Lead Officer at Unite. Onai, you've been part of the talks and part of this dispute since the start. We're more than 6 months on now since the all-out strike started. Bring us an update of where we are at the moment with the union and the talks and this industrial dispute.
Well, what we're seeing today is determination from our members, who are saying that they are not going to take an £8,000 a year pay cut. So it's worth starting off with that. This isn't about people asking for more money. This is people defending their living standards. Now, at the moment, there aren't any talks. Our demand is that those talks restart. We're prepared to start talking anytime, any place, anywhere. And let's not forget, we were in talks previously. A ballpark agreement had been reached, and then what happened is that commissioners who run Birmingham City Council pulled that deal. So the commissioners are answerable to the government. the government need to give the message to Birmingham City Council, let's get back into negotiations so we can resolve this. Because I tell you what, our workers aren't going anywhere. Our members are not going anywhere. They are determined to stand out for as long as it takes, because they are not going to take pay cuts. They are not going to take pay the price for austerity.
Now, the government say that Unite, you need to urgently come and end this deal, that you have caused untold misery, they say, to residents in Birmingham, and that you need to be the ones to come back to the council and end this strike. But obviously recently your members have voted to continue industrial action until March 2026. There'll be a lot of people that live in Birmingham that will think, when does this end? How does this end?
Yes, and our members have voted to extend strike action with an increased majority. Now, as part of our campaigning, we've been knocking on doors, and a huge number of people, the vast majority, are saying that they support the dispute, that they see the council as being to blame for the dispute. When the government talk about taking the deal on the table, here's the truth. Here's the truth. There is no deal on the table. That's the point. For there to be a deal, they need to get into the room and negotiate. We're ready to do that at the drop of a hat. It's the other side, unfortunately, they're refusing to talk. But you look at the determination today, hundreds here today, sending a very clear message. And also to Shabana Mahmood. Don't forget, we're outside her office today. She is a Birmingham MP, and the message is this, that the rubbish isn't being collected. They can pretend the service is running, but it is not. That's the reality. We don't want the streets filled with rubbish. We want a resolution. They need to get into room and start negotiating with us.
Onai Kassab, National Lead Officer at Unite, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You can see a big turnout here for this protest outside the Home Secretary's office.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. And still ahead, we'll be crossing back to the Labour Party conference. But up next,
we'll be looking ahead to Ed Miliband's speech. He's expected to say, talking about reform again, that reform will betray generations to come by waging a war on clean energy. This as bills are going up.
Well, you're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's our notes, isn't it? So why shouldn't the public have to say on who's on notes? And we've had Shakespeare, of course, and we've had Winston Churchill, but let's have something a bit more up to date.
David Attenborough.
A brilliant idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant idea.
No, I've just come up with that, and I thought that was quite good. And then they also encourage ideas, nature, don't they? So I thought maybe some acorns.
Why not a beaver?
A beaver is a great idea, Claire.
You still cannot pass a Scottish note in anywhere in England, and for fear it will not be accepted as legal tender.
It is legal tender.
Of course
but it is legal. Yeah, it is legal tender. Same as an Ulster note.
Yeah. And see, the minute they start to hold it up in the air, I'm like, I'm going to get you.
It's legal tender.
It's legal tender.
I prefer to use cash in most cases, OK?
Mm.
But we're finding that more and more people are not actually using cash, and then the Bank of Wokery have now said, let's get rid of the historical features on it and let's move on with something more modern.
No,
so I'm glad you like that,
They
Norman.
want to get rid of it because it gives them control, it gives governments control, that they can see everything you're spending, everything you're doing and how you're spending it. And I think it's really creepy.
So do I.
The other thing that's wrong with it, actually, buying by card, is that the people who own the transaction between the retailer and the customer are all American companies.
Yeah.
And they take a rake off of about 1%, 2% for nothing. That's all money going out the country.
Right, and by the time it's passed on, if you tap and go, then it's diminished, whereas if you had the physical £10, it's still £10.
Well, it's interesting that we three would like the feel of notes. And
I like the feel of notes as well.
That's four of us.
I feel rich when I've got cash in my
Younger
pocket.
people in general, I mean, I couldn't give my kids money. You say...
You can give me money anytime.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10:29 and this is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, we're joined now by broadcaster and journalist Mike Parry and former Labour MP Stephen Pound in the studio to go through the papers. Good morning, gentlemen. I think we should carry on speaking about Starmer's massive 55-minute-long speech yesterday. We've just had it analysed by a speech coach. What was your analysis of it?
Look, there were so many parts of Starmer's speech which are completely nonsensical. For instance, one quote, Nigel Farage has got nothing good to say about this country. Now, the reason he's got nothing good to say about this country is because, Mr Starmer, you've made our country an appalling place to live, OK? Inflation is going up, people are out of work, businesses are closing down, millions and millions of people have an ambition to come and live here who shouldn't be here. Of course he's got nothing good to say about the country because you've ruined our country.
Mike, we didn't live in earthly paradise last July. You know, to be honest.
It was a lot better than it is now. A lot better, I'm telling you.
Let me just say, it's quite amazing how much politicians invest in their conference speeches. And we think of disasters like Theresa May's. We also think of brilliant speeches like Neil Kinnock's one. Do you remember when he actually attacked Derek Hatton? You know, talked about a Labour council scurrying around handing out redundancies.
And where did that get him? Nowhere.
I have to say, it got him a massive amount of support. He didn't win the next election.
Exactly.
But my God, he beat off the militant.
Well,
so look,
meaningless.
The important thing about this one is, I have to say, it's the first time I've heard Keir Starmer sound absolutely animated. And that never mind the flags and all that nonsense.
But it's interesting, Mike and Stephen, that he's become animated talking about Nigel Farage, not about his own proposals. I'll finish this, Mike.
Sure.
There's been an obsessive range of Labour politicians coming out to give these discussions about Nigel Farage. Are you waiting for Labour to put forward some of their own perspectives rather than talking about reform? I thought their conference ended a few weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to see that. But he's even changed his position on Nigel Farage. A couple of months ago, his advisers were telling him to let's double-think Nigel Farage and get his policies out under the Labour colours before he does. Now they've abandoned that, and now he's just decided to attack head-on Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is rubbish. He turns to grievance. But he turns to grievance because we've got a lot to be aggrieved about in this country. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, but Mike, you're actually agreeing with what he says. Well, look, the thing that worries me about this, I think there's a misstep here. I think to actually refer... Yeah, but honestly, to actually refer to reforms policies as racist is nonsense. Because it is not racist. You could call it immoral, by all means. You can call it wrong. But in many, many ways, if we're trying to... We, the Labour Party, are trying to get back those voters who are flooding to reform, calling them racist and insulting them is not going to lure them back into the camp.
Exactly. It's a basket of deplorables, isn't it, that Hillary Clinton used to talk about recovering.
Well, you knew Hillary far better than me, obviously.
What do you think, though, about the use of language? Because, obviously, they're painting Farage as far right. David Lammy even made a comment about Farage being involved with the hit.
Absolutely dreadful.
Obviously insane. But Reform are complaining that actually this could be seen as incitement to violence. Do you think it goes that far, or is this just the normal kind of cut and thrust of
Miriam, I don't think this is exclusive to the Labour Party. First of all, just to think, the David Lammy business, he actually said that when Nigel Farage was at his public school, he was singing Nazi songs. Well, that's risible. It's ludicrous, it's ridiculous, it's demeaning to politics, and it shows David Lammy in a very, very poor light.
He rode back on it, but by then perhaps...
But that's the oldest trick in the book.
It was far too late.
It's far too late, but, you know, Reform now complaining about incitement to violence. Youssef saying that if something happens...
Target on Farage's back.
Wait a second, he's going to blame the Prime Minister if he is attacked. Did David Lammy really do that? It was sort of an embarrassing trip.
No, I think in light of what's happened in America recently, we all know the tragedies that have gone on there.
But this is the United Kingdom, right?
I know it is, but when America coughs, Britain sneezes. That happens in politics, it happens in economics, it's happening now. The worst image, by the way, Labour there, were all these people sitting on the front row waving these stupid little flags around, you know, like, look how patriotic I am.
Charlie makes a very important point. We are not America. People don't walk around with semi-automatic rifles in this country. It's a big difference. So let's not big that up.
Something else that we've got that America doesn't have, Tatiana Sanchez, with your 60-second news up.
It's America's loss.
Charlie, thank you very much. The top story. Sir Keir Starmer says he does not believe Nigel Farage or Reform voters are racist and also refused to label Donald Trump's claim that London wants Sharia law as such. That's after targeting the party in his Labour conference speech and claiming Reform's leader hates Britain. The US government has shut down after senators failed to agree on a last-minute funding bill. The shutdown, the first since the end of 2018, is likely to bring some US government services to a temporary halt. Police officers accused of using excessive force on suspects in custody at Charing Cross Police Station are said to have shared anti-Muslim messages and some supportive of Tommy Robinson. And all GP surgeries in England are required to offer online appointment bookings from today. Those are your headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, we'll be crossing live to the Labour Party conference where the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, is expected to launch a scathing attack on, yes, reform. This is Britain's Newsroom, another one on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Bit of a north-south split again today with a lot of cloud across the north, some rain around as well, much of the south dry and fine, but there is again some fog around first thing. Quite a wet start in western Scotland. The rain, once it's set in here, is likely to last for quite some time. Further south, well, a little bit of showery rain over northwest England perhaps, but most of England and Wales dry. Yes, there's a few fog patches around, but they should be clearing, and then we'll see some dry and bright conditions. Hazy sunshine lifting the temperatures up to 20 Celsius. Rain easing a bit from Northern Ireland, but as I said, persisting in western Scotland. Not going to rain across all of Scotland, however. I suspect the Moray Firth should have a decent amount of shelter and even some bright spells coming through here. The rain will ease a little in western Scotland, but there's more rain to come through Wednesday night and Thursday. So we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place, the potential for some flooding and some travel disruption. Does turn a bit drier through the evening across Northern Ireland. Still one or two showers maybe in Cumbria, but most of England and Wales having a fine evening. The wind's pretty light here as well, which may allow some mistiness to reform through Wednesday evening, but the wet weather will continue to push back into Northern Ireland, western Scotland. As I said, we've got that warning in place. A bit more rain edging a little further south at times into North Wales and northwest England too. Further south it stays dry with some clearer skies. In the rural spots we could dip down to single figures, but a very mild night across Scotland and Northern Ireland with that cloud and the strengthening wind, which will again be a feature of Thursday's weather. Again, the rain may ease for a time in western Scotland, but look at this, another pulse of rain tomorrow morning for Northern Ireland. That spreads back into western Scotland. This could really be quite heavy and last through Thursday night into Friday morning, so again the potential for flooding and disruption, whereas again a good part of England and Wales looking dry and bright tomorrow with temperatures in the high teens.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers in North Ayrshire should proceed cautiously due to surface water today. The A40 between Landovery and Sennybridge has an incident with diversions. In Middlesbrough, a collision on the A174 westbound has closed one lane. In Northamptonshire, the A14 eastbound between the M1 Catthorpe interchange and Junction 1 at Welford has a broken down vehicle causing lane closures. The M25 clockwise at Junction 14 is experiencing significant delays due to a collision. In Surrey, expect delays of about 40 minutes. And on the trains, disruptions are affecting services between Birmingham New Street and Northampton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back, it's 10:38 and this is Britain's Newsroom.
Well, any minute now we are expecting to hear from the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, at the Labour Party conference. But in the meantime, let's speak to our very own GB News presenter, Andrew Pearce. Andrew, good morning. Have you been having a wander around? What's the mood like this morning at the conference?
Well, I have to say, the trouble is with the Labour Party conference, it begins to die. It begins to die after the Prime Minister has made his speech. He spoke on Tuesday afternoon, and lots of activists fled for the hills, frankly. Ed Miliband is the big star attraction this morning. He's going to rule out fracking. That's going to be the big giveaway today. But he's also speaking on the day the energy price cap is going up, so people's energy bills are going up from today. But look who I bumped into here. Paul Richards, who's well known to our show, well known to GB News viewers. Paul, how's the conference going?
I think we're ending the week in a much better place than we started it. We started with speculation about Starmer's leadership, and we're ending it with a series of announcements about what the government is actually going to do. So that's a much better place.
Is fracking the answer?
Fracking is a disaster, isn't it? And all the science suggests that it's a really unstable way to get energy, and far better is renewables and wind farms and solar and tidal and those things. And that's why he's talking about today.
OK, and on that note, Paul, we can now throw to Ed Miliband. He's got to his feet, the Secretary of State for Energy speaking. He's got the floor.
Then let's first of all hear it for Tracy and her brilliant speech. Thank you so much, Tracy. And let me say something about my friend, Keir Starmer, our leader and our Prime Minister. Because friends, believe me, I know what pressure you face in giving the leader's speech at Labour Party conference. Long experience. Yesterday, he gave an absolute barnstormer. Let's raise the roof for Keir Starmer and the brilliant speech he gave. Friends, I know this party, and I love this party, and I love all of you as well. You know, my dad spoke at conference only once as a delegate. The party conference was in Margate. It was 1955, 70 years ago. And recently I looked back at his speech, and in a 2-minute speech, he attacked the National Executive Committee. He complained about the composite he was being asked to support. And he called for the nationalisation of the commanding heights of the economy. It's good some things don't change in the Labour Party. But he said something in that speech that has always had special meaning for me. He said that being part of this party was a great adventure, and we had a vision the Tories would never have. A great adventure. For me, for us, for our party, that's the point of being in politics. To go out, argue for, and make real your vision, our vision of the country, and have it change people's lives for the better. Not just to be different faces managing the government, but governing with totally different ideals and vision. That's what I want to talk to you about today, conference. But first, as you head home and we end this conference, you should take with you the ways we are starting to change Britain. Just take pride in what we've already done in energy. 10,000 new jobs at Sizewell C. Investing in Rolls-Royce small modular reactors. Funding for carbon capture and storage in all corners of Britain. The biggest investment in clean energy in British history. The onshore wind ban lifted, enough solar to power 2 million homes. Ending the scandal of the mine workers' pension scheme. Solar panels on 200 hospitals and 200 schools to cut their energy bills. Britain leading the world again in the fight against the climate crisis. And yes, the first publicly owned energy company in Britain for 70 years, Great British Energy. But friends, this must only be the start of the change we bring to Britain. because our country is so far from the vision we all have, and people are impatient for change. And here's the thing, they're not wrong, they're right. Our country needs to be run very differently. Now, we know what reform's approach is. Scapegoat anyone or anything they can pretend is the cause of all our problems. They want to blame diversity. They want to blame net zero. Anything they can to stir up division. Friends, I'll tell you this, they're wrong. They're dead wrong about the causes of our country's problems, about why our living standards have stagnated, about why our public services have declined. You see, here's the thing. It's two dominant right-wing Tory ideas that have devastated Britain over the last few decades. The first idea from the 1980s, trickle-down economics. Remember that? Enrich those at the top, and everyone else would feel the benefits. We all know how that worked out. All it did was bring the deep inequality that still scars us to this day. Friends, it didn't work. It won't work. It can never work. The second idea from the 2010s, austerity. That if government got out of the way and cut again, it would sort out our economic problems. And we all know, you all know from your communities, that was a disaster too, decimating the services across Britain that working people rely on. So you see, and this has got to be our starting point, that's the real issue. That's the real issue about the condition of Britain. For almost 30 of the last 40 years, we've had governments that have transferred wealth, power, and income away from working class communities. And it's not through an accidental series of mishaps, but a deliberate act to benefit the wealthiest in our society. Friends, we've got our party card here. Remember what it says on our party card. It says we stand for a community in which power, wealth, and opportunity are in the hands of the many and not the few. That's our vision. That's our vision, but that feels like an absolute fantasy, a distant dream for so many millions of people in our country. That's why so many people feel Britain doesn't work for them. That is what we must change. That is the mission of this Labour government. And now what's so important about clean energy, what's so important is it can answer the call, as Tracy said so well, it can answer the call for a different kind of economy run for working people. It offers the biggest opportunity for job creation for decades, and we must seize it. Skilled jobs in proud professions, tens of thousands more jobs for engineers, for welders, for electricians, for construction workers. And behind these statistics, and you know I like statistics, behind these statistics is the potential for each and every one of these jobs to change the lives of working people and their communities. You know, recently, I spoke to an apprentice working at Sizewell C. He was so excited. He was so excited about what he was doing, the prospect of a good job, not having to leave his hometown, doing the right thing, yes, for the future of the planet too. Just think about what that chance will do for him and thousands of others like him. And now think about the potential, job by job, city by city, town by town, your city, from offshore wind in the east of England to carbon capture and storage in the northeast, and yes, here in the northwest too. Hydrogen in Yorkshire to new nuclear in Wales, critical minerals in Cornwall, to nuclear fusion in the Midlands and backing existing industries like ceramics. And in Scotland, oil and gas workers who have powered our country and our world will continue to be a valued part of the energy workforce. And at the same time, We will create new jobs in hydrogen, offshore wind, and carbon capture and storage. And friends, if you want to know the difference the Labour government makes, you know the Acorn carbon capture and storage project was talked about for years by the SNP and Tories, but never delivered. Now it is being made real by this Labour government. That's the difference the Labour government makes. And friends, let me say this. Think how many more thousands of jobs we could create if we had a Scottish government that embraced and didn't block nuclear power. One of the many reasons we need to kick out the SNP and make Anna Sarwar the First Minister of Scotland. And these jobs, and these new jobs, and Tracy talked about this too, must be a model for the kind of fairer economy we believe in. And look, I want to be very straight with you about this. For far too long, trade unions have been locked out of new energy industries. They came of age when Tory dogma said unions were a dirty word. No more, not on my watch, not on my watch, conference, not on our watch, not ever. And so let me say this, our clean industry bonus rewards the offshore wind industry for investing in Britain, and that's the right thing to do. But under a Labour government, public money must serve the public interest. That's why I can announce we will introduce a new Fair Work Charter as a condition of that bonus. And let me spell it out. Fair wages, the very best rights at work, and yes, access to unions. My message is simple. My message is simple. Under this Labour government, fairness at work is not a privilege for some, but must be a right for all. And as I talk about this issue, let me pay tribute to my friend Angela Rayner for her New Deal for working people, and I pledge we will implement that New Deal for working people in full, in spirit and in substance. And our commitment means stamping out exploitation wherever we find it. You know what? You know what I discovered when I walked into this Department for Energy? Current rules mean that if you work offshore in renewables, more than 12 miles out at sea, you are literally in no man's land when it comes to employment protection. You're not even guaranteed the minimum wage. It is a scandal. It is a Tory scandal, and I say we will end it. Our principle, which we will put into law, offshore, onshore, land or sea, you will be guaranteed fair pay and decent rights at work. That is the difference a Labour government makes. And clean energy offers our best chance to escape the high energy bills that have caused the cost of living crisis. Today, bills remain high because wholesale gas prices are still 75% higher than before Russia invaded Ukraine. We're at the mercy of the petrostates and dictators, and the only way out of it is our mission for clean power by 2030. And as we put up the solar panels and wind turbines, build the nuclear power on the grid, in the meantime, we're determined to do everything we can to help working people. So this winter, because of the decisions of this Labour government to extend the Warm Homes discount, almost 3 million more families on the lowest incomes will get £150 off their energy bills. We will not rest until we tackle the scourge of fuel poverty in our country. For years, landlords have got away with renting out substandard, damp accommodation with no rights for renters. No more, not on my watch. And so in our Warm Homes plan, I tell you this today, we will end this scandal. Hundreds of thousands lifted out of fuel poverty, millions of families helped. That's what ending the Tory legacy of cold, damp homes looks like, conference. And this is just the start. And this is just the start. Insulation, solar power, batteries for lower bills to help tackle the cost of living crisis. House by house, street by street, working with our brilliant Labour local authorities and mayors, helping millions up and down the country. A plan that means by switching to clean energy, you will be better off. That's the difference a Labour government makes. And friends, we've only just begun when it comes to the work of Great British Energy. Don't let them tell you public ownership makes no difference. I'll tell you exactly the difference it makes. Building on our success, Great British Energy will go even further in cutting energy bills for frontline services. On top of the 200 schools already announced, I can announce 45 more schools will get rooftop solar this year, transferring money from the pockets of energy companies into frontline services. On top of the 200 already in the works, over 50 more NHS sites. And for the first time, our publicly owned energy company, Great British Energy, will work with the Ministry of Defence, so those who serve in our military get the benefit of lower energy bills too. Great British Energy, owned by the British people, supported by the British people. Yes, friends, delivering for the British people. And this is all in the service of our vision, bringing wealth and power back to working people and their families. That's the mission of this Labour government. But friends, and Keir spelt it out yesterday, we face a fight like never before, not in my 30 years in this movement. Reform would wreck everything we're doing. They've said they would wage war on clean energy, a culture war they're importing from the United States, driven by the rich and powerful interests who fund them. And let's spell out what their war means. It's a war on the workers at the Siemens wind turbine factory in Hull. It's a war on the construction workers building carbon capture and storage in Teesside. It's a war on the workers at the new cable factory in Scotland. It's a war on the working people of Britain. That's what Reform's war means. And theirs is an all-out war on future generations too. I'm incredibly proud of British climate leadership. I'm incredibly proud of Labour climate leadership. And I say Reform's war on the future would betray every young person in our country and every young person and every person yet to be born. And here's the thing. Don't let Reform tell you Britain can't make a difference in the world. Friends, we will never accept Reform's shriveled, unpatriotic and diminished view of our country. Ours has always been a vision of Britain standing tall in the world, fighting for the national interest and true to our traditions of internationalism. And let me just say, I am so proud to be part of a government that has officially recognized a Palestinian state, as this party has long demanded. And friends, we've got to call out Farage and his cronies for who they really are. They're the investment-crushing, job-destroying, bill-raising, poverty-driving, science-denying, Putin-appeasing, young people betraying bunch of ideological extremists. That is who they are. And we know where they want to go next. And they won't know where they want to go next, but they've told us. Fracking. Fracking. In your communities. Fracking will not take a penny off bills. It will not create long-term sustainable jobs. It will trash our climate commitments, and it is dangerous and deeply harmful to our natural environment. Friends, the good news is that communities have fought back and won this fight before and will do so again. Remember Liz Truss? Who could forget Liz Truss? Remember Liz Truss and her 42 days of disaster? The Tories tried to overturn the fracking ban, led by Jacob Rees-Mogg. Remember him? Yeah, who could forget him either? Friends, got a message for you. We sent those frackers packing. I say, let's ban fracking and vow to send this bunch of frackers packing too. But the threat from reform goes way beyond their climate-denying agenda. You see, the truth is, I wish Nigel Farage was just the snake oil Tory city boy we've known about for years. He's actually morphed into something even more dangerous. He's now a key part of a global network that wants to destroy the ties that bind our communities and our way of life. And I can sum up the threat for you in 2 words. Elon Musk. Elon Musk. He incites violence on our streets. He calls for the overthrow of our elected government. He's an enabler of disinformation through X. He thinks he can tell us how to run Britain. Conference. We have a message for Elon Musk. Get the hell out of our politics and our country. Friends, let me end by saying this. What I've learned over 30 years in politics, through good times and bad, thick and thin, is that what sustains you is something very simple. Your values, what you believe in, what you stand for, and who you fight for. That's what the point of politics is. In fact, I think that's the only point of being in politics. And at this moment of peril for the world and danger for our country, we know what our values mean. We have to fundamentally change who our country works for, not tinkering around the edges or fiddling at the margins, but fighting always, always for the vision that it says on our party card: power, wealth, and opportunity in the hands of the many, not the few. And this time, in our generation, we haven't come this far. We didn't work this hard for 14 years through the dark days of opposition to hand our country over to reform. This is the battle of our time. Our people and our communities against the political con men who want to sell our country out to the vested interests. our people and our communities against narcissistic billionaires who sow disinformation and stoke violence, our people and our communities against those who would rob them of their rights, sow further inequality, and take away our freedoms. Friends, our fate lies in our hands. We have the power to change Britain for the better. Let's use that power, guided always, always by what we believe and who we're in politics to fight for. And friends, I say this, with the courage of our convictions, we can, we must, and we will win the day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, fantastic speech from Ed Miliband. Very, very passionate, very confident delivery, clearly enjoying himself.
Fantastic speech. There we go, the former Tory MP straight in with huge
talking
praise.
About the content
No, well,
there.
you should clarify, I think, because you found his delivery compelling. But a ban on fracking, I mean, what I found at the end, very interesting attack from Ed Miliband on Elon Musk, saying, get the hell out of our country. Well, Ed Miliband is speaking in Liverpool. Elon Musk's grandmother, Cora, was born in that city, and he feels a great and very close link to this country. But I do know that Elon Musk has upset a lot of Labour figures because of his interventions on the grooming gang scandal, which I think has ruffled a few feathers and perhaps been part of the reason that forced him into action early this year.
And he was using it as part of his attack on Farage, who he said was part of a global network seeking to, I suppose, oppose the idea that we need to fight climate change, full of, again, references to Nigel Farage.
Yes, indeed.
He's had a great day, another great day at the Reform Conference.
Nigel, on the agenda, well, before we go back to the party conference, we do have some breaking news for you because a High Court judge has ruled that PPE MedPro, a company linked to Tory peer Michelle Mone, must repay the government almost £122 million for breaching a contract to supply 25 million surgical gowns during the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, we'll bring you the latest reaction to that news throughout the programme.
But let's return to Ed Miliband's speech we just heard. And we're joined now by energy analyst Jonathan Kitson to react. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us on the programme this morning. The headline there, obviously, the ban on fracking. What do you make of that decision from Ed Miliband?
I think it's a interesting choice to go down. That will require update to the 2015 Infrastructure Act. So they're going to have to find time to do more legislative changes in a pretty packed parliamentary schedule. He didn't really give us any detail on when they were going to ban it. Currently, we have a moratorium. I didn't think it was necessarily the most positive speech. He was full of enthusiasm, but there wasn't really much to announce that was good about current energy policy. And this comes in the context. Yesterday, the UK government released a huge amount of statistics. Within those statistics, they confirmed that we have the highest industrial electricity prices in the IEA, and we have the second highest domestic electricity prices. That's pretty bad. And it appears that they're not really going to address this. We're doing Clean Power 2030 instead. We're going to build a huge amount of wind and solar, and that will need backup. The backup will come from gas. We've just banned, Miliband has just announced we're going to ban fracking. We're going to ban more domestic gas production. Seems like prices are going to go up.
And, Jonathan, they seem to be pinning their hopes on nuclear. He mentioned nuclear power a number of times, of course, recent announcement into Sizewell C, yet that plant is a long way off being built, a long way off being able to contribute to our energy system. Do you think there's any chance that nuclear will contribute to bringing prices down in the near future?
In the near future, probably not. To build new nuclear quickly, you would probably have to build small modular reactors. This is a pretty, the United States is putting a lot of money and a lot of investment into small nuclear reactors. We're building few of them here. But again, nuclear is slowed down by pretty extensive planning and regulation. So that probably won't be built in the UK before 2030. So as soon as we start talking about 2030, that's 5 years away.
Now, Johnny, do you have hope that there's going to be a broader policy platform from the other parties to put pressure on Ed Miliband to sort of change the strategy that he's currently adopting? There's a lot of concern, isn't there, from people involved in promoting energy policy, that this net zero agenda is costing us an absolute fortune. Now we're hearing that suppliers are asking for enduring targeted support for those in financial difficulty. Something has to change soon, surely.
I think both the Conservatives and Reform are saying very, very good things on energy. They recognise that we need cheap, abundant, reliable energy and electricity and all forms of energy. That's coming across pretty strongly from both parties. But those parties aren't yet in power, and Labour is currently doing its own thing.
Now, the Labour Party continue to claim that renewable energy is cheap, that it will bring our prices down. We've heard a number of Labour delegates interviewed at the conference claiming the same thing, and yet the reality has not happened. We've halved our carbon output since the 1990s, and yet our prices have gone up and up. Will there be a point when renewables do bring our prices down, or do people like Ed Miliband need to get real?
Well, in the UK, renewables are subsidised and their prices are set. So even if wind and solar prices go down, the cost of installing them, the cost of operating, managing them, even if they go down in the future, our prices are set, and we set them in allocation rounds. We have allocation round 7 coming up, which will be announced in November and December. Those are 20-year contracts, so we're setting prices for 20 years. So even if the prices of installing, running, operating wind and solar go down, the UK will be locked out of that because we're locked in to 20-year contracts.
OK, Jonathan Kitson, energy analyst, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Well, GB News contributor Matthew Talbot is among 4 people to have been banned from the Labour Party conference in what has been labelled a Trumpian crackdown. He claims he's had his pass revoked because of his views.
Well, joining us now from the Labour Party conference, not sure if he's inside, I think he'll be outside, is Matthew Talbot, regular on the channel. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us this morning. You're meant to be inside right now. You're meant to be listening to Ed Miliband's speech. What on earth is going on?
I don't know. You know about as much as me, I think, Charlie. I went to go and see the leader's speech yesterday. I was told that my pass had been rescinded. I'd raised it with conference services. I've sent 2 emails as asked to. I've had no response. And I was simply told that my pass had been cancelled due to a safeguarding issue. No reason as to why. And it's, you know, ultimately I want to be here to be having conversations with members and discussing the way forward with Labour, but it's not to be.
Now, you've been quite critical of Keir Starmer and indeed quite supportive of Andy Burnham, who had a half-in, half-out leadership bid last week. Do you think that could have had anything to do with what's happened to your pass?
I think it could be. Some people have suggested it. I think this is the problem. If they don't tell me, then I can only make assumptions, I think. But in any sort of democracy, if you're seen as a pain or critical or whatever else, I'd hope that you would feel secure enough to go, these people don't matter. You know, we're doing well and it doesn't matter what the noise is, we're getting on with the job. If that is the case, I think it's quite chilling for anybody that has a sort of different opinion in the party or out of the party.
OK, Matthew, thank you very much for joining us outside the Labour Party conference this morning as that's wrapping up. Well, a Labour spokesperson has told GB News that it wasn't a freedom of speech issue, but Matthew had broken their code of conduct, although they couldn't specify exactly why. They have added that they have accommodated dissenting voices at the conference.
Well, still ahead. We are going to go back to the conference. I'm a bit worried about this kind of trend, Charlie, for people to be accused of something and they're not allowed to know what their offence is. Now, obviously, this is a relatively minor thing. It's not criminal. It's just a conference pass. But to say somebody has broken a rule, broken a code of conduct without specifying why, I find that quite sinister.
Extremely. Yeah, very odd process. Hope to get some more clarity there. Owen Jones had his pass taken away by the conference there as well in Liverpool. Obviously, Owen Jones likes to go around and cause a bit of trouble. But yeah, I think it is an interesting position. I hope we can learn a bit more. Well, you're watching Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show in GB News. Stay with us. We'll be back to the pay-per-view panel just after the break.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 11:16. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates. You're watching GB News, which is now officially Britain's biggest news channel for 3 months in a row, July, August and September. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going places, Kate.
Absolutely, very exciting. Favourite morning show, we can say that genuinely.
Oh, yes.
Well, we're now joined on your favourite morning show by the broadcaster and journalist Mike Parry and former Labour MP Stephen Pan. And of course, our panel are a big part of what our audience tune in for.
Yes, indeed. Let's start with...
We're the handicap.
Well, no, we certainly appreciate you both. Let's talk about then these fat generals from the Pentagon. They're all staff being weighed twice. Pete Hegseth got them in for a bit of a dressing down, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want a fat general leading my army, obviously. But to be honest, I mean, it includes beards. J.D. Vance has got a beard, hasn't he? He's the Veep in the United States.
You're going to declare an interest, Mike?
He was a US Marine.
But he knows
he was,
yeah. But listen,
a photographer, I believe.
I believe obesity is one of the greatest threats to humanity. Because have you ever seen the crew of an NHS ambulance in this country? I'm not saying that they're all overweight, but I've seen some who are overweight.
Right.
I've seen overweight people in the National Health Service, and I've seen a lot of very overweight policemen in this country. I do not believe that police in this country are subject to controls
Well, hang on a second.
about their weight.
UK adults are overweight.
Yeah, precisely. You almost got to admire a man. Can you think of a sentence involving the words pot, kettle and black? I'm sorry, you see President Trump...
Excuse me, I'm not a US Marine.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about Trump. No, don't take it personally, big lad. I'm talking about Trump. Look,
it's quite strange.
In the Navy, we used to, I mean, you probably know that you're a serviceman. Do you have the bleep test?
Yes.
We used to have to, the bleep test, everybody had to do it. You had no choice. It's where you had to run and then turn around and run back again. Mind you, on a ship, you couldn't run very far. Otherwise, you'd fall off the stern. But you could. But I mean, the idea that he's actually going to get them in and do a twice-yearly test.
Yeah.
And if you really, really want to get the military on side, this is not the way to do it.
I don't know. I think the rank and file will appreciate it. You know, I've had bosses in the military before, and I have to say my respect for them was diminished because leadership is about doing what you expect your juniors to do too. If they can do the fitness test, if they can, jump over that wall, run through their window.
If they're not setting an example, how can you possibly follow that man into battle? I mean, that's the.
Well, no, hang on a second. It'd be very sensible to follow into battle because he'd get hit and you'll be safe.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Never mind your Kevlar, but I mean, I'm thinking of Julius Caesar. Do you remember when he says, "Yon Brutus has a lean, and yon Cassius has a lean and hungry look. Don't trust him. He's too thin." And do you remember Barack Obama? They said, "Is he too thin to win?" I mean, that's the. I mean, you two, obviously, you're svelte to the max.
We're grafters.
Absolutely.
Corporal Kate's here.
We've been stacking on pistachios.
You're not.
Ed Miliband is. I mean, we just witnessed his speech.
Are you changing the topic? Are you presenting now?
No, not at all. No, I thought you were going to say that to me, and I was preparing myself.
I've got another point for this one, actually. This highest male standard only. That's what Pete has.
So women have got to match it regardless.
Yes. That's an interesting move, I think. The United States going against this sort of grain that we're seeing in modern military thinking across the West, which is that it's got to be more about equality and bringing more women into frontline roles.
Well, it's just quite. I mean, again, just referring to, we worn uniform. Most of warfare nowadays is more technological. The idea, physical fitness is not 100%. It's important.
Yeah, but it's the image, it's the optics, isn't it? Of having.
I don't care about image. I care about efficiency. I want to be able to kill the enemy as efficiently and as effectively as possible.
Yes, but the optics mean if you've got a fat boss in the army, you're not going to follow him with as much fervour.
Well, shall we move
You're going to get stuck in the conning tower.
Before we offend anybody else, let's move back to...
Sorry, is there anybody else to offend?
Ed Miliband, I think, is that
yes. So we've had some very interesting interviews with Sharon Graham, who is the head of the Unite Union.
Yes.
She's been speaking to GBNews a lot over the last few days. And defending, actually, Nigel Farage's policies to some extent. But she's also called for the sacking of Ed Miliband, who you just heard speak, over his approach to net zero, because she's saying that these promised green jobs are not there and that actually her workers are going to be losing their jobs over the...
They already are. Grangemouth refinery has closed down. Only this week we've heard another refinery in Lincolnshire has closed down.
Lindsay.
And this is all due to massive taxes on energy in this country, and in particular on the North Sea. Ed Miliband's now been ordered by the Chancellor Eve, you've got to reopen some of those applications to drill in the North Sea. But in the speech he's just made, he made this one announcement: we are banning fracking.
Yes.
Well, excuse me, but already energy in this country costs 6 times what it costs in the United States of America, who, due to fracking, are now the world's biggest exporter of energy. This is the maddest policy I've ever come across.
We are so costly in this country for energy. We need to be taking all routes possible to bring those bills down. Ed Miliband's speech is going to be one of the efforts keeping those prices so high. That was
hang on a second.
Rapturous applause.
Where we agree, I mean, the thing about fracking, it's like you've got a suitcase full of gold bars under the bed and you can't be bothered to actually pull it out. Fracking is a wonderful thing for actually make us energy self-sufficient. But look, the thing about Unite, this is really interesting. Unite were the biggest donors to the Labour Party for years and years and years. She's actually
now
talking
say
about,
they might not.
She's talking about disaffiliating from Labour, which would be very, very interesting. But she's also seems to be anti-Labour at the moment. I mean, this business about Lindsay and Grangemouth, there is a transition to green jobs, which didn't happen when the mines were closed down. There was no transition. That was the real problem. Close the mines by all means, but make sure the mines...
There's something else there, Now, AI, right? I mean, 150 billion in AI industries given to us with a new agreement with America.
Sure.
Why are they going to come here if the electricity costs 6 times what it costs in America?
We are not prepared for the technological revolution if we have those limits. Right, I think we've got time for one more. Go to Daily Mail. The story on the 2-child benefit cap to be lifted by Rachel Reeves.
Utterly outrageous.
The country's in a lot of financial turmoil.
Well, A, where on earth does the money come from? B, is this actually encouraging personal responsibility? And C, will it be means-tested? If it is not means-tested, then we get a ridiculous situation.
You're meant to be the left-wing voice here.
Exactly. But more and more people,
what a good idea it is.
More and more people are going to be asked to pay to bring up other people's children because the birth rate's going down, fewer children, but more people are going to have to pay for them to be brought up. It's an outrage, an utter outrage.
Sorry, Mike.
Yes.
If people don't have children, who's going to pay for your pension? And who's going to pay for your healthcare? Because if you help people bring up children and it costs you a few £1,000s while they're young in education and support, the average person pays over £200,000 of tax during their working life. If they don't have that child, you can say goodbye to that tax bill.
Before you started having children, did you think, how much will the state help me to start and raise my family?
Yes, because do you know what? In the old days, older age was a family matter. So you had children in order to make sure that you had someone to support you in your old age. We now have pensions.
I didn't know that. I thought you had children because you wanted them to have a great life. I didn't know that from an early age you thought you're looking at them and saying you will look after me in my old age.
Miriam's making a really important point. The Beveridge report created...
I'll make it for you, Miriam.
The national... No, I'm underlining what you said. The National Health Service came out with the Beveridge report. Beveridge said the National Health Service will work if men retire at 65, die at 75, and women don't work. They'll be staying behind, looking after what we call the EMI, medically infirm, and they'll be looking after the elderly people. We haven't got that anymore. That's the real issue. But I think it has to be means-tested. And I mean, I've assumed that you've had your children because of love, basically. You love your husband, you love your children.
It's an evolutionary desire.
It's quite remarkable that people still do have children in an age where we support everybody in old age, and that's a good thing. But where we say, if you're going to have children, you're on your own. And
but now there's... Well, hopefully we're... Hang on a second. Some of the nursery money that we actually give, there is now actually grants for children in nursery. My grandkids at a nursery...
You don't have children in order to then farm them out to someone else, to a stranger to look after.
But there's another huge surge in welfare benefits now. More and more welfare benefits. Let's become a welfare state, and when we're a welfare state, let's have more welfare. I mean, it's got to stop at some stage. This is mad.
Means test it, Mike. Means test it. What's wrong with that?
No, just don't do it.
She said there's going to be a taper.
Say to people, if you want children, budget for them to bring them up. Don't ask the state to do it. State control again. I don't like state control.
Would you say that to old age pensioners? If you haven't had children, tough, you're not getting a pension.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
How do you match those?
Old age pensioners have been paying national insurance all their life. They've actually booked their pension throughout the 40 or 45 years they've been working. That was the principle. That was the principle of what it was all about. I know it's a Ponzi system now, but that was the system.
Reality. So it doesn't actually work like that, as Miriam was saying.
So unfortunately, as Stephen said, when the pension was introduced, the welfare state, the life expectancy was 68, 69, and the way that national insurance was calculated was on that basis. Now people are often retired for 20 or even 30 years, which is an amazing increase in life expectancy, but we just can't afford it.
But that's why we keep pushing back the age at which you draw your pension further and further. No, I agree with you. It's got to be pushed back to 70 almost immediately, I would say.
Help people have more children, and then we can shore up our tax base.
Well, they can bring up their own children. I don't want to pay for other people's children. Why should I?
Well, that's exactly what's happening. In Japan, they've decided they have to actually put incentives for people to have children. If you remember China, they had this sort of one-child policy. Actually, they had this infanticide. They were actually, killing babies. But now they're begging people to have children because they realise that the actuarial consequences of this, what you're talking about, the relationship, is disastrous.
The government will also clearly want more professionals to have children as well, because...
Oh, now steady on where you're going with this. This is eugenics.
Well, I'm not. Well, the problem they've got is that lots of people who want to have children, who are paying taxes, aren't. And lifting the two-child cap, it'll be people who aren't necessarily paying into the system, and it'll be young professionals who want to not be able.
So do you mean we're going to have the wrong sort of children under this scheme? Is that what you're saying?
What Charlie's saying is, at the moment, the super rich have quite large families, and the very, very poor.
How many kids has Elon?
Middle-class people.
How many children has Elon Musk got? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Does anybody know how many children Boris Johnson's got?
Well, we'll let him right into the programme and let us know. Right?
Yeah,
well,
yeah. Well, no, Ed Miliband just told him off.
OK, you two, we're going to move on now because OK, you're still going. Pink ladies are marching in London in an anti-migrant hotel protest in Parliament Square.
Well, the group described themselves as local mothers, sisters and grandmothers, saying they're not far right, just on the right side of history.
Well, let's cross to Westminster now and speak to GB News national reporter Will Godley, who's live at the protest. Will, what's going on?
Good morning, both of you. There's speeches going on. They've been cheering, dancing, and it's full of mums, daughters, grandmas, aunties, all from Epping. Of course, you remember that was where we saw huge numbers of protests over the summer after the use of the Bell Hotel there being used to house asylum seekers. It started after an Ethiopian man sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, which he's now serving 12 months in prison for that offence and 4 others. Just yesterday, another man sentenced to 16 weeks, someone from Syria who was staying at the Bell Hotel. Well, those protests, they've reached here outside Downing Street, and I can speak to some of the pink ladies here. Nina, what's brought you here today?
Peaceful protesting for the refugees that are here, and yeah, just.
And people here, they've been chanting, "Keep our children safe." You're wearing a T-shirt, "The only way is Epping." In Epping, are children not safe?
No, I don't believe they are. No, not at all.
Why is that?
Because we've got 130 men, unlisted men, no papers, are living in our hotel. And there's a pathway that they go to the schools. They've already, obviously, molested a girl, 2 girls actually. They go in the shops in Epping, they do what they want, they take all the stuff. Excuse me. I don't feel that they should be here in our hotels because I pay my taxes, they're getting everything free. We've got homeless people on the street. I have been homeless myself. I had to literally cut up a settee once to get £1.50 for a pack of sausages to feed my kids. And this is the truth. So why are they getting everything free? Why? I don't get anything free. I work hard and I have to pay for everything. You know, it's not on. They get vouchers, they get cleaners in there.
Thank you, Nina. We're also joined this morning by Susan Hall from the City of London Assembly, leader of the Conservatives there. Susan, why are you here today?
Because I'm a pink lady, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm concerned about my children and grandchildren, and quite rightfully, everybody that is here for the right reason. They're here because of community safety. That's what they're worried about.
And they're protesting the illegal immigration. Of course, we've seen that over the channel, but most of that happened during the Conservatives' watch. You're the leader of the Conservative here in the City of London. Why are you here? How can you be here when it basically all happened under your watch?
And I'm sorry that it did. But equally, Keir Starmer got into power saying that he was going to smash the gangs. Where's that? Where's that happening? It's not, and that's the thing. Yes, the Conservatives got things wrong. I'm here today as a pink lady. I completely support these people. You've got to look at how many people have come over since Sir Keir has come into power. It's getting worse and worse, and something's got to be done about it.
Well, the people here from Epping, but you represent people across London. Do you think London's safe?
No, a third of or I think it might even be 2/3 of the people that have been put in hotels are in London. No, they don't feel safe. The trouble is, a lot of these young men come from cultures that do not regard women very highly, and that does not make us safe.
Susan Hall, thank you very much. We're also joined by Libby, 21 years old. You live just near Epping as well. Do you feel safe walking the streets?
No, I don't feel safe at all. It's happened to me personally in Chelmsford with 3 men. It's not safe for no woman.
And you're here with your mum today. You've been chanting, "Keep our children safe." That's your message to the Prime Minister today. What do you think, what would you like him to do in response?
We need border control here. We're an island. There's only so many people we can have here. We need our borders controlled properly.
There are people across the road from Stand Up to Racism. They'd say what you're claiming would be racist views. We're safe, we're a tolerant country. Should Britain not have asylum seekers here in the UK?
Illegal immigration is totally different. When you have unvetted men, and they're all unvetted men, it's a totally different case. They're not adding anything to our society. Immigration used to be a thing where you add to society, you work, you go to school, etc. It's not that at all here anymore. It's not racist at all.
Libby, thank you very much for joining us on GB News. That protest here is continuing to happening, and across the road you've got the Stand Up to Racism counter-protest taking place as well. But the message here from the Pink Ladies is very clear to the Prime Minister. Keep our children safe, and they want the hotel, the Bell Hotel in Epping, to be closed.
Thank you, Will Godley, there at that protest. And just to clarify, in the Bell Hotel, one migrant there has been sentenced, another has been charged. Now, let's go for our 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you very much. The top stories. Sir Keir Starmer says he does not believe Nigel Farage or Reform voters are racist. That's after targeting the party in his Labour conference speech and claiming Reform's leader hates Britain. The US government has shut down after senators failed to agree on a last-minute funding bill. The shutdown, the first since the end of 2018, is likely to bring some US government services to a temporary halt. Police officers accused of using excessive force on suspects in custody at Charing Cross Police Station, said to have shared anti-Muslim messages and some supportive of Tommy Robinson. And all GP surgeries in England are required to offer online appointment bookings from today. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Well, coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain. We've got Nana here with us in the studio, and I believe Tom's still at Labour Party conference?
He is. Sadly, he won't be with me.
Oh, no. Flying solo now.
Oh, you know, I'm used to that one. But look, we've got a big show, because of course we're going to be talking about Ed Miliband and his, he wants to ban the ban on fracking, which we're going to have a big debate on that, because it seems a bit of an absurdity. Of course, that speech was obviously targeted towards the unions, really, because he wants to get them back on side. But what a big story that caught my eye today was the fact that women will be able to have a baby without using an egg. Now, did you see that story, Miriam?
Oh, Miriam.
Well, so using skin cells.
Women who have
anybody. Well, it could be anyone, I suppose now. But they're going to be using. They're going to get a skin cell and then use that to then create the egg and then create the baby. So. Wombs, I don't know where they're going to put the baby afterwards.
They are going to gestate the in a surrogate mother, so it will have a mother, just the two genetic parents, if you like, can be male.
So we're speaking to Dr. Renee about that one, because I just think it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, what will it mean for us women who went through it? I'll be quite annoyed that I went through the whole thing.
I think is the big question.
Well, if there's no problem, so for example, if someone's got issues having a baby, then that could be a way forward. But what worries me is that you don't think? You think?
Well, they live, otherwise it wouldn't exist.
Well, but I think the issue is, first of all, hacking the natural process of making a child, I think, is very frightening. But actually, for the baby, I mean, in this law, in this country, you're not allowed to take a puppy off its mother before it's weaned, and yet it's perfectly legal to produce a baby in that way and take it from its mother the minute it's born. I have a moral problem with that.
You should get Miriam on as a guest.
I think we might have to get you on. Well, we've actually got Dr. Renee to explain the science, just so you can fully understand it. But I actually think, I think for those who can't have children, for whatever reason, I think it's a great thing. But I'm wondering if they can do it with a man, so using a man's skin cell and creating a baby that way and getting it. I just think...
They can't have mine.
It's all a bit weird, actually.
Looking forward to that. Now we're on at midday, and up next here on Britain's Newsroom, we'll return to that breaking news that a company linked to Baroness Michelle Mone breached a £122 million government contract supplying non-medical gowns during the pandemic.
You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day across much of the south today. Further north, fairly cloudy with some outbreaks of rain. Some stormy conditions heading in play for some of us on Friday night and Saturday morning. But back to today, as you can see, a bit of a north-south split. We've seen some drizzly rain over parts of eastern England. That's fizzling out, and much of the south dry with some sunny spells coming through. Brightening up a touch over parts of northern Scotland as the rain clears away to the east, but western Scotland stays fairly damp, and there'll be some rain returning to the west of Northern Ireland. In the brighter skies in the south, temperatures could get to 20 Celsius. Cooler than that further north and west with more cloud and an increase increasing breeze. And so we'll continue to feed some outbreaks of rain into western Scotland. Not particularly heavy at this stage, but we've seen quite a bit of rain recently, and there is more to come. So we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Largely fine conditions over northeast Scotland into the evening. Same goes to the east of Northern Ireland, but the rain will be pushing back in here later on. Most of England and Wales having a dry and a fine evening. Just a little bit of rain heading its way down towards the far northwest of England. The rain, as I say, at this stage, mostly fairly light and patchy, but as we go through the nights, the rain is going to start to pep up again over parts of western Scotland. So again, just topping up the rain that's already fallen here through this week. The rain will be on and off into the east of Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, again, many places will be dry with quite a lot of cloud. It'll be a fairly mild night, certainly quite a bit warmer than recent nights across the south. The rain, though, sets in across western Scotland and lasts for most of Thursday, and it's going to get heavier and heavier, particularly later on Thursday. There'll also be some heavy rain tomorrow coming into Northern Ireland, some brighter colours here. The odd shower into the west of England and Wales, but again, most places here fine and dry. But that area of low pressure is going to bring more wet and windy weather Thursday night. But look at this, another really vicious low pressure. This needs watching, potentially some stormy conditions, especially over the north of Scotland as we go through Friday night and into Saturday.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 21 minutes to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Miriam, Kate and Charlie Peters.
Now, PPE MedPro, a company linked to the Conservative peer Michelle Mone, has been ordered to repay £122 million after it was found to have breached its COVID contract.
Well, Baroness Mone's husband, Doug Barrowman, has already hit back at the judgment, calling it a travesty of justice and insisting that the PPE gowns his company provided were sterile.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley for more on this breaking news. Olivia, take us up to speed.
Well, this is a really huge judgment, and it's going to set a precedent for other cases of a similar nature. Michelle Mone and her husband have already hit back really hard, as you mentioned there. Essentially, what the government has said, what the ruling said, was that Michelle Mone's company had to pay back £122 million worth. That's 84 million gowns, which were given to the government during the COVID crisis, which it was ruled today were not properly sterilised. Now, the barrister representing Michelle Mone and her husband, Doug Barrowman, said that these gowns were sterilised. They were marked with the CE label, which shows that they were conforming to European regulatory standards. But there should have been a number after that CE letter, which would have shown that they were fully and properly sterilised. That number was not present, which meant that the government could not use them. Now, Michelle Mone and her husband have said that they are scapegoats, that they are poster boys for the PPE crisis, and they are saying that this case was just too big for the government to lose. They said that justice is being appeared to be done, but actually this case was a foregone conclusion from the off. They will fight back. There might be some sort of appeal. At the moment, it's not clear whether or not Michelle Mone and her husband, or one or the other, could be charged with some kind of fraud. This is, of course, a civil case, so we're not talking about a criminal case at the moment, but this could be where this ends up. It'll be really interesting to see how far they push back on this.
Well, Olivia Utley, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with that.
Well, earlier, the Energy Secretary was the latest Labour MP to perform yet another attack on Reform UK, claiming that the party will wreck everything Labour have built. Let's have a listen.
We've got to call out Farage and his cronies for who they really are.
They're the investment-crushing, job-destroying, bill-raising, poverty-driving, science-denying, Putin-appeasing, young people betraying bunch of ideological extremists. That is who they are.
Well, of course, throughout the party conference, Labour politicians have not been shy in their attacks on Nigel Farage's party.
Doesn't like Britain. Doesn't believe in Britain.
Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman.
The plastic patriots in reform.
The single greatest threat is the agenda of Nigel Farage.
We must call his scheme racist.
Well, let's speak to the Greater Manchester branch chairman of Reform UK, Dan Barker. Good morning, Dan. Thank you for joining us. You must be delighted with this publicity.
Thanks for having me on. Well, I think it says an awful lot, doesn't it, at a conference like that Nigel Farage is getting so much mention, Reform's getting so much mention. But I do think that Labour have really stooped low this time. They really have gone into the gutter with some of this rhetoric. And I do think, the personal attacks on Nigel Farage, given, the death, the assassination of Charlie Kirk only a couple of weeks ago, show a recklessness and a lack of morality, actually, stooping this low.
Dan, the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah, you think that the Prime Minister saying that Nigel Farage's policies are dangerous or wrong, you think there's a chance that that could lead to serious violence against Nigel Farage? We're not in Utah, obviously. We haven't got semi-automatic rifles all over the place. Why are you making that connection?
Well, by demonising Nigel Farage, and he called for us to sort of fight the battles, didn't he? It was a call to action. And,
sorry, fight the battles is about political battles. I mean, forgive me, Dan, you're sounding a bit like a snowflake here, right? Someone's describing you as your political enemy and you think they're going to come and kill you or something like that. I mean, are you not getting a bit carried away here? You're almost making the Prime Minister sound more powerful and influential than he might really be.
He had the largest and loudest platform in the country, and he stood there at a conference, demonised Nigel Farage. He encouraged his whole cabinet to do the same. And he, the things he was saying about Nigel Farage, about reform policy, words are powerful and words are important, and he chose his words very carefully.
At the same time, Dan, your party claims to be the champion of free speech. You've already said that you'd repeal the Online Safety Act, even though a lot of that is about protecting children. Do you believe in free speech or do you not believe in free speech?
We do believe in free speech, but the personal attacks on Nigel Farage, his security has been reduced in the last couple of weeks.
This is part and parcel of politics, trading insults. So. We might not like it, but it is normal.
The tone. What he basically said was that our policies are racist and immoral, and by extension, Nigel Farage is racist and immoral. Anyone who thinks that who's got any even remote concerns about legal and illegal immigration in this country is racist and immoral. And then he demonised Nigel Farage, said he wasn't patriotic. This is serious from a man who's leading the country, whose words carry far and wide.
OK, Dan, I mean, calling someone racist, I think most people are hearing this coming from Labour politicians. Shabana Mahmood said that Farage was worse than racist, didn't specify what that meant. Now, I think a lot of people are seeing that as hysterical, over the top, very silly. That word has lost its power if we expand it to use in all these senses. So you're nodding as I say that, but at the same time, you also seem to think that it's seriously dangerous. It can't be both ways, surely. Reform, perhaps the better response would be to say, this is all a joke, get a grip, normal people are very concerned about this, not to say you're putting our lives at risk.
Well, I was very disappointed that Shabana Mahmood and David Lammy both played the race card in their speeches to conference. It's very disappointing, particularly Shabana Mahmood. Now she's taken on the Home Office, given the issues around immigration and the division that is obviously very present in the country. But I go back to the original. The comments that were made against Nigel Farage, the personal attacks, the rhetoric that was used, has stooped to a level that is, I think is unprecedented in British politics. And it is serious. He does have lots of personal attacks. He has a big security team, and he needs one because he's the figurehead. He's the face that everyone in the country recognises. And I think that Labour should take responsibility for some of their comments.
I mean, I can disagree with you with that. It's absolutely not unprecedented. I mean, even as a backbencher, I was called a fascist and all this, just for voicing ordinary Conservative points of view. So it would be lovely if this was an exception, but sadly it isn't. And perhaps, Reform, we just need to toughen up a little bit.
Well, Miriam, you did front some controversial topics during your time in Parliament, but for the Prime Minister and the entire Cabinet to focus on Nigel and to attack him in this way with the rhetoric, given how febrile the atmosphere is internationally and in this country, we've had people attacked at events. It's not uncommon, and I think there's definitely responsibility needs to be taken here.
OK, Dan Barker, Chairman of Reform UK's branch in Greater Manchester, thank you very much for this. But moving on now, we're going to go to a break. Come back with us in just a moment for more coverage from Liverpool and beyond.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. Oh, no, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Well, how do you feel about going barefoot in the office? Those aren't my shoes, by the way. Because it seems to be a growing trend. British companies are trialling no-shoes policies as a way to improve focus, comfort and morale.
Well, I'm not convinced it works, but joining us now from Dublin is the CEO of one of those companies supporting a footwear-free office, flyguiltfree.com. We have the CEO, Gary Burns, on the line. Gary, good morning. What's behind this new trend to go shoe-free in the office?
Hi, Miriam. Hi, Charlie. I believe the trend is really all about making people feel more comfortable in their workplace. I've worked in a lot of tech company offices, and let me tell you, they're pretty boring places to be. And I think anything that lets people relax will make them more effective in the workplace. Of course, you must keep your feet clean.
Sorry,
very important.
You've like stunned us into silence there, Gary. You must keep your feet
What's your
clean.
policy on slippers?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what we do in our company, Tower Climate, because we're kind of a hippy-dippy tech company, we believe that hemp is the solution to climate change. So our technology enables hemp to grow everywhere and save the world. When we do calls or we're working in the summer, we like to work barefoot in the garden. And what that means is, you know, you're earthing your body, you're getting rid of the charge that's built up in your body, and you connect with the earth, and you actually feel amazing. I can highly recommend it.
I think we should try it, Charlie.
Yeah, we'll give it a go. We'll come off there in a few minutes,
it.
or just cut about on the sofa. Not much earthing you can do in a basement studio, but
there are earthing mats available now.
Earthing
you could
mats.
sit that under your
That's
desk.
what we need.
Yes.
I knew we were missing something.
what is it? So I could bring some sort of a mat with soil on it, perhaps, to make it feel like I'm on grass.
No, it's not like that. It actually connects down to the earth and the
Earthing
ground.
like electricity.
So
Right.
your negative charge flows away and you feel amazing. Try it.
Thank you so much, Gary. That was a fantastic end to the show. Really appreciate you coming on.
Gary Burns, I'll get one of those mats. Thanks a million. Right, well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. We've had a real rollercoaster show today. Lots of issues covered in Liverpool, and also we're getting our earthing mats out. Right. What's coming up next, Miriam?
Tom and Nana. I'm sure they've got just as an amusing show for you. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miriam and Charlie. Look, we've got a very busy show for you, jam-packed. We will, of course, be live at the Labour Party conference. It is their final day. We'll get all the reaction from Ed Miliband's speech, which is obviously all about trying to warm up the unions and no fracking, as we hear. Plus, Michelle Mone, remember the PPE scandal? She could be on the hook for £122 million. Yes, you heard it here first. We'll keep you updated with that one. So much more coming up. Plus the Pink Ladies, they're protesting outside Westminster. Susan Hall was there. We'll give you all the information on that. But first, let's get some weather.
Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine day across much of the south today. Further north, fairly cloudy with some outbreaks of rain. Some stormy conditions heading in play for some of us on Friday night and Saturday morning. But back to today, as you can see, a bit of a north-south split. We've seen some drizzly rain over parts of eastern England. That's fizzling out, and much of the south dry with some sunny spells coming through. Brightening up a touch over parts of northern Scotland as the rain clears away to the east, but western Scotland stays fairly damp, and there'll be some rain returning to the west of Northern Ireland. In the brighter skies in the south, temperatures could get to 20 Celsius. Cooler than that further north and west with more cloud and an increasing breeze. And so we'll continue to feed some outbreaks of rain into western Scotland. Not particularly heavy at this stage, but we've seen quite a bit of rain recently, and there is more to come. So we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Largely fine conditions over northeast Scotland into the evening. Same goes to the east of Northern Ireland, but the rain will be pushing back in here later on. Most of England and Wales having a dry and a fine evening. Just a little bit of rain heading its way down towards the far northwest of England. The rain, as I say, at this stage, mostly fairly light and patchy, but as we go through the nights, the rain is going to start to pep up again over parts of western Scotland. So again, just topping up the rain that's already fallen here through this week. The rain will be on and off into the east of Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, again, many places will be dry with quite a lot of cloud. It'll be a fairly mild night, certainly quite a bit warmer than recent nights across the south. The rain, though, sets in across western Scotland and lasts for most of Thursday, and it's going to get heavier and heavier, particularly later on Thursday. There'll also be some heavy rain tomorrow coming into Northern Ireland, some brighter colours here. The odd shower into the west of England and Wales, but again, most places here fine and dry. But that area of low pressure is going to bring more wet and windy weather Thursday night. But look at this, another really vicious low pressure. This needs watching, potentially some stormy conditions, especially over the north of Scotland as we go through Friday night and into Saturday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken.